I am Pawan Mulukutla, Executive Director of the Integrated Transport, Clean Air and Hydrogen Program at WRI-India. I have the pleasure of speaking with Claudia Lopez, ex-Mayor of Bogota. Claudia has done some pioneering work in the city of Bogota to ensure sustainable mobility, good urban governance and social inclusion. In fact, she has set new standards for cities across the world on how transportation systems should be developed to ensure that it is providing opportunities to all layers of the society, especially women and marginalized communities. Let's hear her and let's learn from her experience on how she actually transformed Bogota during her tenure as a mayor. Welcome to Bangalore, Claudia. How are you?
Dear Pawan, I'm so excited to be in India. My first time here. I'm really glad to know this fabulous country with these fabulous cities, and particularly Bangalore, which is so similar to Bogota, the capital of Colombia, who I have the honor to be the mayor in the last 4 years.
So you have been already to Delhi, you have been in Mumbai, now you're in Bangalore. What are some of the similarities that you see between Bogota and some of the Indian cities?
Well, I think in general, Latin America and India has too much to learn together because we have similar levels of challenges and opportunities. We have sort of the legacies, good and bad, positive and wrong, of globalization, of economic development. We have a lot of people to live out of poverty. We are sort of in the process of taking advantage of the new tech for industry, for our people, for our youth people in particular. And we have this fabulous phenomena of urbanization. I will say that the difference is that Latin America, Bogota, is already 80, 90% urbanized, rather than India, Bangalore, Delhi, even Mumbai, and many other cities in India are just sort of half and half. Half of the urbanization is already done, and probably much is about fixing some things that maybe didn't go well. But 50% at least is an opportunity to do the proper, cleaner, green, blue, sustainable urbanization of the 21st century. So that's sort of the similarities and the different challenges we faced.
So that was going to be my next question to you. How would you actually, when you started this journey, I know you have been an ex-senator, you have been an ex-mayor, and you have dedicated almost 30 years in this whole urbanization that you have been talking about. What should be a vision for a city?
Well, I guess we are in the 21st century. So the first thing that we need to be aware, totally aware, and driven by science, is that we are in the climate change era. And climate change is something that was not caused by tigers or elephants or bees. Climate change is caused by us. It's the way we move, we produce, and in cities, it's particularly the way we move. Transportation and the use of fossil fuels in individual cars is usually half of the problem of climate change coming out of cities. The second thing is, how do we build our cities? Is the materials we use, is the processes we use. It causes a lot of dust and pollution, and air pollution in particular. So those sources of contamination. And the third thing is how we use our land. So I would say that the biggest sort of lesson in the climate change urbanization era is we need to be humble and obey to water. We need to understand the hydrology of our city. How water runs. It's not how do we want it to run. How will it actually in nature run? Because these severe events, either of water or dirtiness in our city, or dry season, or very monsoon season as you have it here, will be more and more common and more extreme.
Fantastic. I think it resonates so well. We are talking about bringing people, nature and climate together, and not just get caught up with addressing issues. While those are critically important, but it's also to ensure that we take care of all three together and not in isolation. But how did your journey start? You are the first women mayor of Bogota, and I think that's brilliant to hear about that and your journey. I was reading about you before this interview, and I just wanted to understand, during your tenure as mayor, you did some of the most fantastic things. You did the whole care concept, which you actually got it implemented There was the expansion of the bus rapid transit system, electric buses, metros, bike lanes, name a thing. You have done so many things. But I'm sure this journey in Bogota just didn't start when you started as mayor, but much more before. And what inspires you to do this? That's one of my questions. And how did this journey actually start in a city itself, that we need to transform our cities?
Yeah, I think that those three elements that you mentioned, right? Nature and people and place is sort of something we need to combine. I will add fourth element, which is democracy. And I will say, I want to mention that because as I said, one of the things I want to say with all due respect for all cultures, but one of the things that I love and amaze and admire of India is that it has such a great challenge, but is the largest country doing those challenges through democratic processes.
Mm-hmm.
And we should not take that for granted. That's a whole legacy that we should to protect and to improve at the same time. So that's where my journey started. But I will say democratization, which is not only electing people, it's holding them accountable. It's having an open discussion of what the vision for our territory should be. Mm-hmm. The second element that brought me to here is that I think is part of the experience of Latin America in general, but particularly of Colombia and Bogota, is fiscal responsibility. We raise money from our citizens, we raise taxes, but we are accountable to them what to do with that money. But this sort of democratization of election, accountability of political accountability, but also fiscal responsibility and autonomy, that's something that changed the institutional scenario for Bogotas to be. And I would say that when I was mayor, I had this opportunity to build up upon things that Bogota is well famous for. For example, our BRT system that was created almost 30 years ago by the former mayor Enrique Peñalosa, who has been also a great friend and help in India. We have this investment in public education, from child care, primary, secondary education. We improved enormously in the last 30 years in that aspect too. We have this identity of civic culture, civic participatory. We have civic budgets, civic campaigns, and that's sort of part of the DNA of Bogota. You know, citizens are critical and hold you accountable. They also contribute. They, for example, voluntarily pay on average 10% of more taxes and decide where do they want to put that money on. And in the case of Bogota, for example, we are surrounded by mountains. So we have electric cable cars who connect people up from the mountain to the metro or the BRT, for example. Multimodality, rather than this sort of tension and fight. Do you want BRT and buses or do you want metro? And I will say, remember always the answer is not or, but and. For a 12, 14, 15, eventually 20 million people, such as Bogota or Ciudad de Mexico or Bangalore, you will need multimodal systems. But it's not only different modes, but system. And by system, I mean, system is something that connects you from end to end. Right? When you start, when you end, actually. The less time you have to expend, the better, right? That's what all riders want. So public space is gold in our cities, and we need to distribute it accordingly to cleaner, more public, massive, more affordable, more public, with shared transportation. So it's having more space for that. And let me tell you a figure in my city of what level of inequality and congestion and unproductivity I'm referring to. Less than 20% of Bogotanos own a car.
Wow.
Less than 20%. Around 15% of daily trips are done by car. Right? So 80% of the people use public transportation some mode, right? Different type of buses or bikes, or our famous BRT Transmilenio. But when it comes to the public space we have for mobility, for this front to this front, 80% of the space, 70% of the space is devoted to private cars. meaning only for 15% of the trips. Right? And this is a problem that creates and loops in itself. The more cars you have, the more congestion you have.
Claudia, I wanted to understand how does this climate action plan, the sustainable mobility, the master plan, how does it all align in Bogota?
Well, I have to say that I was very lucky because during my 4-year term from 2020 to 23, I had the opportunity because of different decisions at the national level or because of decisions at the city council level to align to do the first climate change plan for Bogota, which has goals to be achieved in 10, 20, 50 years, because our compromise is to be zero contributor of global emissions by 2050.
Okay.
So that's our climate change plan, which is the more long-term plan that we have. Then I had the opportunity, during 17 years, the city has been fighting politically to upgrade the master urban land use plan. It's actually building a multimodal system. So, and that, because of the scale of Bogota, can not only be city-wide, but has to be regional-wide. So I did this regional mobility decarbonized plan.
Wow.
Of public transportation. I managed to agree it. It's a political challenge too, because we need to do with the citizens all these compromises of sharing space, sharing public transportation, redistributing the public space for mobility in a more sustainable, equitable way. But also regional means that I have to do agreements with my fellow mayors who are surrounding the city, and they are as autonomous as I am in their own municipalities. So I think in a 4-year term, in the middle of a pandemic, it was a huge achievement that we managed to enact and coordinate the goals, the investments, the vision of the climate action plan, the land use master urban plan, and the mobility plan.
Well, brilliant. I think what you have achieved during pandemic, it's simply brilliant. I also know you have been a pioneer in introducing this whole mobility for care. And can you really talk about it? And also this feminist transport that we really talk about. Why is it really so important for a city, and how do we make it more inclusive? If you can really elaborate on that, I think I've always been curious to really understand, like, how did you do it? How did this idea come about?
So, Pawan, as I mentioned before, I'm the first woman ever to be elected as the mayor in Bogota. So, let me give you these ideas and why care is an important thing. What I'm saying and explaining and actually had the opportunity to do in Bogota is to bring care as another urban dimension of equity and sustainable development. As much as transportation, as much as low emission zones for air quality. So let me give you this. We are an 8 million people city. 52% of our population, almost 4.5 million, we are women in the city. 25% of those women, more than 1 million, dedicate their entire lives to unpaid care work. But it happens that this is an industry that provides welfare, employment, but it's unpaid.
And we yet fail to recognize this in most part of the world.
Nobody recognizes that. We think that this is obvious. And who's doing this unpaid care work? What is care? We're all going to be children at some point of our lives, right? And we need care. We're all going to be elders, and we need care. Maybe members in our families have severe disabilities. They need special care. So women, 90% of caregivers everywhere in the world are women. And they are doing 7 hours more of work per day, and it's unpaid. So in care, I'm saying, look, we need to have social services in different sorts of social infrastructure that we already have. We don't need to build as much. We have schools, we have park and recreation facilities, we have cultural centers, we have health centers. But that social infrastructure and the social services we provided there are mainly thought for kids. And we suppose that the woman, the mother usually, or the grandmother, are going to sit somewhere waiting for the kid to finish whatever, the school, the game, the play, whatever. What if we use the same infrastructure and we add services so that at the same time that we take care of those that the woman were taking care for, we offer this woman what she has sacrificed for before. We offer leisure, we offer education. Many of them haven't even finished high school, even less post-secondary education. Mm-hmm. Let's offer them that, right? Employment opportunities, income generation opportunities, entrepreneurial opportunities, social empowerment opportunities. But we need to take care of them because they are not going to leave their loved ones without care. So a system of care, or the care blocks, as we call it in Bogota, is a collection of proximate social infrastructures in which we add services so that we reduce the number of hours of unpaid care work done by women. By helping them to take care of their loved ones, helping them to use that free time for themselves, mm-hmm. for their empowerment, opportunities, inclusion, labor inclusion, so on and so forth. And we redistribute that unpaid care work, not only on other members of their families, but also in our public services or in the private sector. We need to recognize that this is not normal and is not desirable. We need to reduce the amount of unpaid care work. But to reduce it, either we pay it or we redistribute it over the shoulders of somebody else's. So we literally teach other members of their family, especially men, to assume the co-responsibility of taking care of their members of their loved ones. You know, as we said in Bogota, men of this world, you're welcome to learn to care. You know? If you don't know how to cook, we can teach you. I mean, that's not rocket science. It's easy to replicate. It's easy to replicate. And I was, coming to India. You sent me a lot of papers, fantastic, about the challenges. And everything, I was reading about, Bangalore, Delhi, or Mumbai. I said, this is exactly the same thing as in Bogota. The poorest people of our city, the more excluded people, cannot move too much because they don't have the money. Even, you have the cheapest, I think, public transportation system in India. Yeah. 5 rupees for 5 kilometers seems nothing. Well, they cannot afford it. So the poorest people in our society, the ones who help us the most, cannot move too far away from their homes. So if they cannot move, as long as we are improving the economic development of our countries and our cities, we need to go. And we need to go with 2 things that they need the most: employment, and care. If we offer them care, right, closer, at the proximity level to their communities and homes, and employment, then the rest will come,
Fantastic. I feel so inspired listening to your achievements and, the way you're thinking this to really address the problems in the society and, what you said, right? Bring care, bring employment, let's bring people closer, and connecting those dots becomes important.
Yeah.
Is this a model? My final question to you, is this the way we should really look at how cities in Global South should evolve? Is this a template that we're talking about here?
Yeah, I mean, this is our lesson. I hate the word model because I think we all have...
Yeah. We have our own models to discover.
We have the same elements. The same pieces, the same challenges. You in India have it as such a different scale comparable to everybody else. But I really, and I don't want to say this because I want to be nice, but I really mean it. India is this great country that has an unparalleled opportunity in the Global South to be a democracy, a new industrialized in the 21st century, and a new urbanized country in the 21st century. Mm-hmm. Those 3 things are your biggest strengths and your biggest opportunities. You can connect them. So if you include multimodal public transportation systems, climate change land use plan, if we don't change the way we move and the way we live, we're not going to have a planet. And there is no Earth B. This is the planet we have. It's the only planet we have. There's not going to be another Bangalore. This is the Bangalore
Unless
we
we're
have.
able to go to Mars.
No, not even.
Just
right?
kidding, yeah.
So really, that's why I think we have the same puzzle, the same goals, and India is being, I think, and could be really the greatest aspiration for the global South, because nobody else has the size of the challenge, but at the same time the size of the opportunity. And we in Latin America, what we have is 100 years of urbanization experience, some lessons of what we realized on time, some lessons of what we did wrong, and we are now fixing. You can do it better from the very beginning. So sharing those lessons and experiences and figuring out how to put the new puzzle together is the greatest opportunity for all of us.
I think that sums really well this conversation all about, right? How do you make our cities sustainable, livable, climate friendly, inclusive? I think a lot of learning from your own experience, and thank you for taking time to be here in India and sharing your learnings. And also I know, I hope you're having a great experience here, experiencing different flavors. As people say India is mix of different countries rather than just states. And thank you really so much for your wonderful time here, and I hope this journey and this learning continues in Global South and Colombia and India, and specifically the learnings from Bogota, things that we have done successfully in India, in Bangalore, in Mumbai and many of our other cities. We can learn from each other and create our own models on how we actually want to create opportunities and at the same time ensure that we are actually able to withstand the climate change that we are witnessing. Thank you so much, Claudia, for joining us.
No, Pawan, thanks to you and to WRI for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you.